What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Alcoholics Unanimous. I am your host, again, your favorite alcoholic, Josh. How is everyone doing? Second episode back. I'm feeling good. Thank you for everyone who listened and gave me feedback and reviewed and all of that. Subscribe, followed. You guys are awesome. Make sure you do follow, subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff if you haven't already. Everything goes a long ways and just helps get more exposure to this. So if you do want to help and you like what I'm doing, that's how you can help. Another thing too, if anybody knows how to get an Essentia sponsorship, please let me know. If you have any connections to Essentia, please holler at me. Essentia, let's go. You need to sponsor this podcast. I don't have many followers, but you can help me grow. And that's what we want to do. Drink Essentia. Anyways, today's episode is called What We Do in the Shadows. And there's a show by that name. Pretty funny, actually, if you, not promoting it, but if you want to check it out, it's funny. But I think the phrase where I'm coming from is I heard somebody say this idea, I don't know if they said exactly like this, but they basically were like, the things you do in the shadows molds who you are in the light. So what you got going behind closed doors is what's going to be presented in person when you go out in public, your interactions with people, your loved ones, your friends, all of that. Excuse me. And I got to thinking about it, like, what does this mean? Because it sounds cool. What we do in the shadows molds who we are in the light, flows off the tongue nicely, but what does it really mean? And this guy who was speaking about it, his name is Chase Hughes, Hughes. I would recommend you go check him out. He's got a really cool job that he does. He trains people on like psyops missions and basically trains how to be a spy and a lot of stuff. But he also does hypnotisms and kind of like helps pro athletes get the most out of themselves and their mentality, which is cool to be able to do that. But he also applies it to kind of just everyday life. Like what can we do to better ourselves? And this is how he has described it. And honestly, one of the better ways to think about it, I think, what we do in the shadows. So that's like the workout by yourself. Is your room clean? Are stuff put away? Do you have trash everywhere? Is your car washed? Is your hair cut? Do you look in a manner that you're proud of? All these little things kind of add up, and it's not just appearance-based stuff, but it's also like, do you feel confident in yourself? Do you love yourself? I mean, all these things, they come out. As much as you want to pretend and think that you're covering it up or hiding it, there's very much tells. I know I have them. I see them in other people as well. So it's not that hard to pick up on. But if you want to be the best you got to be the best you for yourself. You can't be that person for other people if you're not that person for yourself. Which that's something that has taken me a long time to realize for myself, and kind of my life. And I think like given where I've been and what I've done with my life, recovery and all that, I think it holds true, because in the end, when I think about it, yeah, a lot of it It's stuff like fixing little things in your life. I notice when my room is a mess, my life seems to be more of a mess. If I am out of shape, my mood is out of shape. If I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, then it's just going to be permeating through the rest of my life. So addressing those things is like super crucial and key for me to kind of move forward and thrive and survive. I remember one day when I was actually in rehab, we had this like group meeting. It was a men's group, so it was just all the dudes in there trying to be bravado and hopefully they're holding up their end of the deal with manliness and masculinity and just being the stone wall that is kind of expected of a lot of men and the trap that we fall into. But I remember I had said something about how bad I felt about the way I treated my parents, my family, my sister, my really close loved ones. And the part where I touched on to like how I made my mother feel, there was guys in the group that just instantly started bawling, crying because I touched a nerve for them. And that's something that men don't do in front of other men that often, is just cry. But when you're in rehab, you get a little bit of a pass for things like that, which shouldn't just be there. It should be everywhere. You should be able to express yourself and feel how you feel and just do that. But the reason I bring that up is because that was something that they weren't addressing. And when I addressed it about myself, it touched on something strong and personal for them. And that's just like one thing. Like it goes into everything. How you treat your friends and your family is kind of indicative of how you treat yourself. If you're kind of mean to other people, you're mean to yourself. If you're forgiving of other people, you're going to forgive yourself more. If you choose to see the pros and the positive side of things in other people, you're going to see that in yourself. It all kind of goes together. And so the biggest lesson from that I take is just clean up my environment. And that's not just in this physical plane here. It's also in the mental plane, in the emotional plane. Like these are things that you need to keep clean. I like to use the toilet analogy, but your emotions are basically like a toilet bowl. And if your emotions just build up in that toilet bowl, and you don't flush it, it's just gonna keep building. You're gonna have a whole big shit pile of emotions in your toilet bowl. So you have to flush. You have to flush your emotions and poop. If you don't, it's going to be bad. It's going to smell. You're going to get sick. And it's the same thing. As gross as that analogy is, I think it hits the point pretty well because you get a visual of it for sure. But that's what's true about your emotions is they just build up. If you don't address them, if you don't deal with them, some people are naturally good at this stuff. And honestly, I'm jealous of you because I'm not jealous of you because I'm me. But I think it's cool that you have been able to do this for yourself. Because it took me a lot of years and struggle to get there. And I'm happy how I got there. It's not that big of a thing for me to be like, I learned from my losses, and I don't know how I would have gotten to those same places without having to go through what I went through. And just like you haven't there's no other. People like to play the butterfly effect game, and if I did this, then that might have happened, and this might have happened, but like you just don't know, and there's infinite possibilities of what could have and what could not have happened, and any one of them could have been the outcome. So, anyways, flush your emotions every once in a while. Allow yourself to feel them. This is what I mean by flushing them, is allow yourself to feel your emotions. When something presents itself, you're getting an initial reaction. It's either going to be, well, on the grand scale of things, it's either going to be positive or negative or neutral, I guess. It's not going to affect you. But breaking it down even further, it's going to make you, on the positive side, it's going to make you happy, excited, content. On the negative side, it'll be anger, sadness, depression, anything in those kind of two realms. And I implore you, the next time that something happens and it triggers, I think anger is probably the easiest one to recognize, because everyone knows when they're seeing red, and you just feel it in your body, and you're like, fuck this motherfucker. And you can easily recognize the anger. And so that's where I started. My therapist at the time was like, here, do this. Write down what the emotion was, what triggered it, like what did a person say, what did a person do, what happened to make you feel the initial anger, and then backtrack it a little bit. Okay, why did that trigger affect me to feel anger? Instead of saying what, now it's why. Why did I feel the way I felt after that thing happened? Okay, well, they said this, they said that. It made me feel this way because I don't like when somebody says that. Well, why don't you like when somebody says that? Well, because then it makes somebody feel like they're superior to me, or, whatever it is. You just keep kind of backtracking it, and eventually you get to a point where you're like, oh, that's why I don't like it. That's why it upsets me. Something that happened in my childhood. Most likely it's something that happened when you were younger. And it just kind of imprinted in your brain of like, that's what, that's how it works, or that's the way things go. But honestly, it's not something that you might have been right, but most of the time, if it's causing you problems, it's probably not going to be right. It's not something that you're like set on. So the therapist that I had gave me this technique, and I started doing that for a lot of my negative emotions. That was causing me the problems, right? Like that's usually what causes an issue is the negative emotions. And what happens, and for me at least, what happened to me was I started to see and recognize these little things here and there of like, okay, that's something that I can fix. That's something that I can not be upset about. That's, that's something I can easily recognize and kind of sidestep it and then get on with my day. Not let it ruin me like it had in the past. So I started doing that, like I said, for those negative emotions. But then one day I was like, well, I want to feel happier and more content, more excited. So how do I do that? Well, then I started flipping the script a little bit. And instead of negative emotions, I use that same technique for positive emotions. So I would sit down and think about that day and be like, what was something that made me laugh? Okay, was it because, who was I? What made me laugh? Was it the actual joke, the situation? Was it the person I was with? Was I trying to impress somebody? Was I trying to be nice? Was I trying to be, was it a girl that I was interested in? And I'm just laughing just because I'm supposed to. And, or did it genuinely make me laugh? And if it genuinely made me laugh, I go, what? Okay. How? Why? try to figure out all these, little things so that I can get more of that in my life. And, same thing for like joyous moments. Like, do you feel better? It doesn't have to be like okay, this one moment triggered this, how I feel. It could be a whole series of things. It could be something where you spent some quality time with somebody that you really love. And at the end of it, you just feel good. You recognize that like, oh, cool, I feel pretty good today. And I hung out with that person earlier today. Maybe there is something to this, whatever it is. So you can do it for the positive sides and bring yourself more joy in life, which is something I've definitely tried to do. Probably more recently than even for the negative emotions. I think I'm not saying that I'm in any way like conquering that side, but they haven't been plaguing me. The negative side hasn't been plaguing me like it once did. I think it had a lot of control over me for a long time, and but once I kind of relinquished that control, it has had a hard time grasping it again. Specifically the anger. I think the depression comes back and forth, but I think that one's a little different. I think it is. I think it's more of a genetic thing than it is anything else, and I kind of have to just deal with that for the remainder of my life, which is fine. I'm already dealing with recovery for the rest of my life. That never stops. You're never recovered. You are just constantly recovering. And that's fine. That's how it's supposed to be. Anything that's worth doing like that, it's not going to come easy, right? It's not going to be like an overnight switch. You're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to try to, put in those man hours, or woman hours, or whatever. But yeah, that's something that I think has helped me quite a bit. And I would implore you to take the time to do that exercise. It's really quick, really easy. You don't have to write anything down. It helps me to see it visually, helps kind of get it out of my head and becomes a tangible thing on a piece of paper. So even if I don't like it, I can just shred it up, and that gives me some sort of satisfaction. And I think there's some science to that. So something like that may help you as well. And I did want to touch on, last week I talked a little bit about my anxiety kind of being alleviated in a lot of ways and me feeling a lot better. And that same guy, Chase Hughes, during this interview that he was saying, he talked about worrying, which that was me in the AA world and rehab. They call it future tripping. Which is you're just worried about what's to come instead of what's right in front of your face and what you can handle and what you can do or what you can deal with. I just realized how many times I said and but anyways, he said worrying is just rehearsal for the worst outcome. And the thing that you don't want to happen most often does happen. And I think it's because of that. Like, we're worrying. So you're rehearsing for that outcome, which means you're playing it over and over in your head of how you don't want it to go. But what you don't realize is you're training yourself on how it's going to go. And I think that was very impactful for me in this last month or two of my journey. I was a very big worrier. I think a lot of people are, and it's not the end of the world if you are. But I definitely was crippled and paralyzed by it. I would blame it on like perfectionism. I wouldn't do this or that because it's not going to be perfect. So whatever, I'm not going to do it. And that's the stupidest thing you could do. I was talking to somebody very cool about about kind of like the creative process and what kind of she experiences and what I experience as well. As far as putting things off or worrying that the final product is not going to be what you want it to be. But then we're like, yeah, but if you never try, you're never gonna do it. I don't want to be on my deathbed thinking about all the things I didn't do. That's the age-old story. No regrets on your deathbed means like you did a lot of shit. You did the shit you wanted to do with your life. You weren't worrying. You were visualizing instead. That's the difference between the two. The worrying is for the worst outcome. Visualizing is for the best outcome. And that's where that law of attraction comes in. I don't know if how much stock I put into the fact that like if I say something out loud, it's going to come around to me. I think there's some stock in if I say it out loud, then I believe it more. Then I'm going to be more likely to go and pursue and put myself in the right spot and get lucky because luck is just opportunity and timing. I'm sorry. Wow. Luck is opportunity and preparation. Those are the two things that luck is. And so, just stop worrying. I know it's so stupid to say you should worry about some things, but if it's crippling you, if it's paralyzing you, get away from that. It's not going to be positive for you or beneficial to your life at all. It's just going to hold you back or set you back even farther than you are because you're worrying about the worst outcome. You're preparing for it, basically. So visualize the best outcome. Think about the feeling you have after, the gratifying feeling that you'll have after you accomplish that thing. Set yourself a goal. I think I know some people that just kind of coast and just kind of live in, they don't have goals to speak of. Maybe they do in the back of their head, but they haven't put it out to the world. Those people, I would say, hey, just write it down. Say it to somebody. Be like, hey, what do you think? What do you think about this? Like, I kind of been wanting to do this. Guaranteed, if the person you're talking to cares about you in any capacity, they're going to say, hey, yeah, go do it. That sounds sick. Cool. Go try it. And the older I've gotten, the easier it has been to do that. I think the younger you are, the less likely you are to step outside of your quote unquote lane. But here's a news flash. There are no fucking lanes. Okay. It's just an open desert and you just drive in the right direction, or swim in any direction, right? Like we talked about, just keep swimming. So my life, I think, has benefited greatly from that. Just stopping the worrying. If you have trouble with that too, it's like a fake it till you make it situation. Because you will train yourself to do it the right way. You'll find if you truly in your heart want to move past, that's the thing too. Do you have the passion to change yourself? Do you have the ability to augment and enhance your own psyche, your own emotions, your own intelligence? Do you have that ability? Everyone does, but do they have the passion? I don't know. That's kind of your call. I would say I do. That's part of what I'm doing here right now on this very podcast is talking through a lot of my shit, and then you listen to it. And that's kind of my one-man therapy show that helps me get all this stuff out in my head. I write it down on my notes. I actually prepare for this as much as it sounds like I don't. I do actually prepare for this podcast. I write notes throughout the week of stuff I want to maybe touch on and talk about. And then I expand on them and ask myself questions of, okay, what does it mean to me? How does it apply to my life? Is it something that that's new to me that I'm just trying? Or is it something that, I've come across before and maybe put on the back burner. Like there's all kinds of things I prepare for, but when I say it out loud, it makes a huge difference. Because again, it makes it that tangible piece. Like if I did this whole podcast and I just went in on whatever, something that's really bugging me, and I get to the end of it, I'm like, oh, fuck that. I don't want to release it. I delete it. And then there it goes. It's gone. I know now because I tried it and I said my piece, and there it goes out the window. And it's satisfying as it is. but anyways, yeah. I think that's it for today. Been keeping these episodes a little shorter, and I think it's better for the content. It seemed to be a little bit better pace for this one, and the last one as well. So I think that's it. I'm going to sign off. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do all that. It helps me out. It's free for you. Don't be afraid to be a fan. And I appreciate you. I love you. I'll see you next week. Bye.